Welcome to the latest episode of the B Movie Club. I'm your host Kevin. This week we'll be discussing the 1992 sports comedy action drama classic Diggstown, starring James Woods, Louis Gossett Jr., Bruce Dern, Heather Graham, Randall Tex Cobb. The list goes on and on. For those of you joining us for the first time, each week on the B Movie Club I discuss certain guilty pleasures and forgotten classics. Movies that maybe haven't gotten their due because they're not that great, in my humble opinion. Anyway, you can go ahead and go to our page on Facebook, Original B Movie Club. Give us the big thumbs up. Also go to our page on YouTube, Kevin D. That's me. Hit the subscribe button. It's totally free. And you can follow me on Twitter at the B Movie Club. Do those things, you'll get the latest updates, you'll be notified whenever I have a new video, a new review, and any other kind of wacky stuff I find. I just send it on down. You know, you can appreciate it. Go ahead and spread the word, tell your friends, strangers, enemies, tell the world, if you will. Thank you for joining us. Diggstown. In this movie, you've got this con man, Gabriel Kane. He's just getting out of prison. He's got this scheme. There's this town called Diggstown, which is basically the hometown of this formerly, very successful boxer named Charles Macomb Diggs. He was a big success, I guess, world champion, something along those lines. But he had, on his last fight, something went wrong, and it basically made Charles Diggs brain damaged. Okay? So he basically sits on the edge of town in his mansion looking out over the lake, just kind of like catatonic. But what we discover is that the whole town put all their money on Diggs winning this fight. The person who didn't put the money on the fight was actually his manager, who actually bet against his own boxer and cleaned up. So he basically runs the town now. The manager's name is John Guillaume. He runs the town. Okay? So the con man meets up with his buddy, Fitz, and they go to this town and they set up this elaborate scheme. Basically, in kind of a drunken fight kind of thing at a local bar, Fitz throws out a bet. I'll bet $10,000 against your $1,000 that my boxer can beat any 10 men from Diggstown in a 24-hour period. He throws that out there because there's a legend that Charles Macomb Diggs at one point had beaten 5 men in one day. So he throws that out there, and of course John Guillaume, who basically runs the town, says, okay, how about my $10,000 to your $100,000? At this point, Gabriel Kane, who is secretly working with Fitz, unbeknownst to the people in the town, I'll back him. We've got a deal. So what happens is we discover that Guillaume like I said, owns the entire town. He has vast financial holdings. And while he was in prison, Gabriel Kane, the con man, met up with a guy who used to live in Diggstown and discovered the truth about John Guillaume, that he basically drugged his own fighter. He drugged Charles Diggs during that fateful match, and that's how he was able to guarantee that Diggs was going to lose the fight, and that's why he was able to get all the money. So this is all a scheme to get a little revenge on John Guillaume and clean him out, essentially. So Gabriel Kane has a boxer that he's worked with many times in the past, a former heavyweight boxer in the 70s named Honey Roy Palmer, who would just knock people out left and right until he had a couple bouts against his nemesis, a man named Hammerhead Hagen, who he lost these 2 fights to, and he basically faded away. That was the end of his professional career. But he's been doing a lot of underground boxing since then. Problem is, he's 48 years old. So Kane goes and convinces Honey Roy Palmer to be the boxer to take on the 10 Diggstown men. So this is anything what you would consider to be a above-board fight. Fitz and Kane go about trying to come up with ways to kind of tip the odds in their favor. They're going to give one of the boxers laxatives. They're going to basically hire hookers to be with a guy the night before the fight. They're going to try to bribe some of the guys. So, over the course of the movie, Honey Roy Palmer is basically fighting these guys. I guess it's like supposed to be 5 rounds per box or something like that. I'm not sure how it works. Maybe more than that. But he only has 24 hours to do it. Okay? So that's a full day, 24 hours. One of the stipulations that they made was that the boxers had to be from Diggstown, but then they agreed that anybody who's from the county could qualify, as long as they were a resident of the town within that certain period of time. So he goes through, and there's all this drama because he's an older guy, Honey Roy. He's not a young man anymore, and he's fighting all these young, kind of in shape guys. There's a lot of drama building, and while this is going on, Kane goes to Guillaume and says, let's increase our side bet, increase our side bet, increase our side bet, until eventually comes down to, $750,000, then it's like $1 million, then it's everything you got. Now, Kane doesn't have this much money on him, so he has to basically borrow it from a loan shark from Miami. So if he loses the bet, that's the end of him. I don't want to spoil everything. I don't want to give away all the subtle nuances of Diggstown. I really enjoy it. It definitely flew under the radar. It's a comedy because there's a lot of wacky stuff that goes on, but it also has a lot of sports, boxing stuff going on there. It's got a great cast. Gabriel Kane is played by James Woods. James Woods is great. Louis Gossett Jr. Plays Honey Roy Palmer. Bruce Stern plays John Guillaume, the evil guy who runs the town. Fitz is played by Oliver Platt. Heather Graham has a role in this movie. James Caviezel, if you know who he is, he's on that show, Person of Interest. He plays a very small role as one of the boxers, like a young guy. So, it's great. Randall Tex Cobb plays another character. It's an all-star cast. What can I tell you? Didn't do that great in the theaters, I'm sad to say. As I'm describing the plot to you, it is kind of convoluted and bizarre. And oftentimes you're like, why is this happening? Why are people doing that? It's okay. It basically comes down to it's a boxing match. Doesn't have to get more complicated than that, okay? But I enjoyed it. Some things you might want to know. The director is a man named Michael Ritchie, who did a lot of things that we all appreciate. He did both the Fletch movies. He directed Golden Child. I mean, he's directed a bunch of good stuff. I don't know if Golden Child's a good one, but he directed a lot of stuff. This is one of his things. Diggstown was based upon a novel called The Diggstown Ringers. For those of you guys not in the know, a ringer is someone who is, in this case, somebody who's brought in to box who maybe doesn't fit the qualifications. You know what I mean? It's kind of an underhanded move. Like, for example, in this movie, to qualify to box Honey Roy Palmer, they have to be Diggstown men. However, there's a couple characters who kind of get in on a technicality. They're not technically Diggstown men, but as the rules are specified, they kind of fit. So, yeah. Ringers they're kind of underhanded characters, I guess. You know what I'm saying? So, good times. You learn something new every day. Heather Graham, like I said, is in this. You remember her. She was in, obviously, License to Drive prior to this. She had kind of a dry patch there for a little while. It's kind of funny to see her popping up looking very young. Interesting fact, Louis Gossett Jr. had a tryout. He was actually going to be on the Knicks at one point. He was a professional basketball player and actually turned it down to become an actor. So there we go. We all get to appreciate his fine work. We remember him in An Officer and a Gentleman, a number of other things. It's funny because, there's a long old training montage. One thing about the 80s and the early 90s, there's a lot of musical montages where it's like, well, we can't just show you him training. It's got to be like, turn up the music, and there are scenes of him running and practicing and all this stuff, just to it shows the passage of time, and it shows all the things he's doing. I was laughing because he's obviously topless throughout the entire boxing match. I'm like, you gotta get him to do some crunches or something, a little soggy, a little soggy around the midsection, if you know what I'm saying. Poor Louis Gossett Jr. Randall Tex Cobb, who's in this, he was also, he was in Fletch Lives, among other things. He was also a professional boxer. He battled Larry Holmes in the early 80s. So there you go. So there's a lot of people who have boxing backgrounds in this. Some of the boxers who fought Honey Roy also had kind of real boxing pasts mixed in there. The referee of the boxing match was Benny Urquidez, who's a famous martial artist. There you go. You've seen him in a ton of stuff. He oftentimes is in movies with John Cusack, because John Cusack is amateur kickboxer. I can't explain it. I really enjoyed it. It's fun. It has comedy. It's got the sports angle. Sadly, the world didn't appreciate it as much as I did. A lot of people have never even heard of this movie. It currently has a 54% rotten on Rotten Tomatoes. I think that is ridiculous. The acting is good. Again, if you like James Woods, this is James Woods at his finest. Louis Gossett Jr., you can't beat it. There's one scene where we meet Honey Roy's wife, and they're kind of arguing about whether Honey Roy should get back on the fix. And that actress was actually played by Louis Gossett Jr.'s wife in real life at the time. So that's kind of an interesting little fact. So there you have it. Good times. Diggstown. I am going to go ahead and move away from the genre, the comedy, action, something. Actually, I'm not going to move away from it. I'm going to be going to more of a comedy, espionage, spy thing. Sneakers, starring Robert Redford, Sidney Poitier, River Phoenix, Dan Aykroyd, Ben Kingsley. It's an all-star cast. So go check that out. It is still streaming instantly on Netflix, along with Diggstown. If you haven't seen either one, check them out. Send me in your favorite scenes, favorite quotes, questions, comments, favorite actors, any movie suggestions, and I may just talk about them on the show. Again, you can go to our page on YouTube. Go ahead and click subscribe. You can go to our page on Facebook, Original B Movie Club. Give us the big thumbs up. And don't forget to follow me on Twitter, at the B Movie Club. Don't forget to spread the word, won't you? As you know, I end every episode with a totally out of context quote, and here it is. It could go that way, though I'd bet $4 against an hour with your mother it won't. Oh, you know what? That was wrong. $5. Hey. So there you go. That was a horrible quote from Diggstown. So go ahead and watch that sucker. Thank you for joining us. Next week, sneakers. Be well.